Hello students, welcome to the session of the topic Formwork and Centering. Now in my previous lectures, we constantly discussed about the concrete construction. What is concrete technology? What are the ingredients used for the construction of, let us say for preparation of concrete mix, the various ingredients, its function, the production of concrete, various stages that were involved in the manufacturing of concrete. Stage-wise construction, we saw that there were various stages starting from batching up to finishing and curing work. Now, you might be wondering that we discussed about the preparation of concrete mix, its stages of manufacturing, but where will you pour this concrete? Where are you going to place this concrete? Out of the stages of construction, placing was one of the methods. Placing was one of the methods, one of the stages in manufacturing. I had discussed that various precautions have to be taken when you are placing your concrete mix. I also discussed that you have to place the concrete layer by layer and simultaneous compaction has to be done. So now the point is, where are you going to pour this concrete, fresh concrete mix? So the temporary structure in the picture you can see over here is various material are used as formwork. Now formwork is, let me define it first in a very simple manner. The temporary structure. The temporary, why temporary? Because once the concrete is poured into it and the desired shape and dimension are achieved, then you shall remove it and reuse it for other members, similar members. So it is a temporary structure which is built for placing of fresh concrete mix. Not just fresh concrete mix, if you are preparing a precast section, precast unit, then also you will require a box-like structure, a temporary structure. We shall call it as a mold. So it is a temporary structure in which concrete is poured and the required dimension, required shape of the structural member is achieved, and then once the concrete mass is hardened enough, you shall dismantle this formwork, you shall remove this formwork carefully and your required or the desired structural member shall be ready. In the picture you can see here is the top story. The top story which is under construction here. For the slab construction, you can see that the boards are made up of timber. And for the column construction, you can see that they are made up of plywood or say steel, and the concrete shall be poured in these boxes known as formwork. Let us discuss in detail about the formwork. Now have a look at this video, the first video which I am playing right now. You can see in the animated video how the formwork is set up and the concrete members, the structural members are constructed with the help of these molds or temporary formwork. Have a look at this video. This is a pretty simple video. You can see the plywood, the planks of the timber are being arranged and the board shall be ready. On top of that will be your member for the slab construction. So by these two videos, you can make out a difference that how this formwork is erected at its position, at its place, and then concreting work is done, and simultaneously when one story is completed, it will be removed and reused for the consecutive another story. So I have different words over here. First word is formwork, which I discussed. Formwork is a general term. Now if I talk about shuttering, now shuttering is also similar to formwork. It is also kind of temporary structure. Talking about centering, the third term you can see is centering. Now let me say that specifically I want to construct an arc structure, an arch. You know what is an arch? I have discussed in the masonry construction. So if you want to construct an arch, then the temporary structure will be again required. So for that, the temporary structure which is erected and the arch construction is done is known as centering. Next is mold. Now, what is mold? It is nothing but a box. They are generally used for precast sections. Different types, different shape, different sizes of molds can be prepared for your precast sections. You can also say for preparing laboratory samples, you also have molds for the same purpose. So all of these are the temporary structures required for achieving your concrete member. It depends on the type of structural member, type of location and the type of member which you are producing, either precast or cast in situ. Let us move further now. So the formwork can be, let me say, it can be as small as the mold which I have shown here in the bottom picture, and it can be as large as, let us say, for G plus 15. If you are constructing a G plus 15 structure, that is ground floor plus 15 stories, it can be as big as that. It can be as big as a single story, its slab, its beam and column, and it can be as small as a mold. The mold you can see here is for a beam. This is for laboratory purpose. For testing purpose, if you want to make a beam, a PCC beam out of your fresh concrete mix, then a small mold is used, which you can see here. And if you are constructing, say, RCC wall, the left picture you can see is the formwork, timber formwork, specifically timber formwork for RCC wall. And on the right which you can see is your formwork for column. Lots of advancement have taken place currently in the material used for formwork construction. Now why is your formwork important? Because your economy will majority depend on the formwork, because designing the formwork is also an important task for achieving your required structure, for its safety, for its stability and for its construction. So let us discuss technically, moving forward, technically what is a formwork. So as I discussed already, you can see the definition flashing here. It is a temporary work or temporary structure which are constructed in the form of supports or in the form of molds, which is made up of timber or steel. Steel and timber are the most basic material. There are also other material available for formwork. Next, I discussed already, I showed you the pictures as well. What is a mold? It is used for generally precast elements. You can see the picture of a mold here. This picture is for a cube, for casting a cube. Next is centering. I also said about arch construction. If you want to construct an arch, then the temporary structure shall be called centering. You can see in the picture centering. I have gathered a picture of the same. You can see over here is which type? Say it in your mind. Timber centering. The centering which you can see, the formwork which you can see is made up of timber. Moving forward, next, there are certain requirements of a formwork. Before moving further, before going towards specific type of formwork for specific structural members, there are certain criteria, certain requirements. As I discussed, that economy is very much important because majority cost will depend on the formwork, construction and design. Safety is important, stability is important, desired dimension, to achieve desired dimension is important. So there are various criteria, out of which we are summarizing few that are necessary, compulsory for designing a good formwork. Now, to design a formwork, first of all, if your formwork is already constructed, it is erected, you have filled the slab and beam members into it. You have also filled a column, let us say number of columns for one story. Now, what happens is you have to remove this formwork. Let us say generally after 24 to 48 hours, you have to remove this formwork. When you are removing this formwork, there may be chances that your already constructed concrete member may get damaged. In some cases, you might have to apply some force to remove the formwork. So in this case, your formwork may also get damaged. And if your formwork gets damaged, you may not be able to reuse it again. So if you are not able to reuse, then you will have an impact on the economy. So easy removal is your first requirement, easy removal of formwork. Next is the strength. It is but obvious that strength is important because when you are pouring concrete, let us say for a column, it will undergo bursting stresses due to concrete. So it should be strong enough to withstand the stresses developed by concrete hardening. Next is rigidity. It should be rigid enough to carry or to, let us say, when the concrete is poured, it should be strong enough, it should be rigid enough that it does not move from its place. It is clamped, it is rigid properly. Less leakage. Now formwork is generally a box. So if you say that you are preparing a column, then you will have four sides of your boxes. Now for the box, the four planks, the four sides will be clamped, will be having joint with help of let us say whatsoever equipment, nut and bolt equipment. So these joints should not be built such that when you pour the concrete, water sometimes comes out from the joint. So this should not happen. There should be very much less leakage or no leakage at all. Next, smooth surface. Generally, steel formwork provides you very good, very smooth surface because your required structural member, your concrete members have to be smooth. That is the requirement. So it should have smooth surface. If it will have rough surface, then the concrete member will gain its rough surface and the surface will not be smooth then which is required. Lightweight. It should be as much light in weight as possible to avoid the unnecessary heavy loading conditions after pouring of concrete. Also to handle it, you will have lightweight. Quality. Quality is important in all kind of construction, in masonry construction, in formwork, in all types. Quality is important. Support. Let me say that if you are looking at a construction right now where you can see that the already constructed slab on the top story is having the slab formwork and below that vertical supports shall be provided. Now these vertical supports shall be in the form of timber or steel props. So support is important because if you do not provide this support, because of the concrete which is poured, it may deflect, it may displace from its position and cause failure as well. So support is important when you talk about formwork construction. And last is the economy, which I already discussed, why economy is important. In the video over here you can see is the formwork for a column. The reinforcement shall be placed and the four planks, four sides of the boxes will be made and concrete shall be poured. A ladder is provided over here in case your column for one story is generally of 3 meter height. So to pour the concrete, this ladder may be required for the workers. Next, materials used for formwork. Now, as I said, the basic material for formwork is timber and steel. From the timber, we have advancement of plywood. Generally, plywood formwork, plywood timber is used because of its high durability, because of its smooth surface, because let us say that if you use timber, there may be a problem of breakage when you remove it, when you dismantle it. That problem shall be overcome in the plywood formwork. So currently in the market, plywood formwork is more used as compared to timber formwork. But to know properties of any material of formwork, you should first know about timber and steel. In the picture here, you can see with the help of timber, the box of the column is made, this is your temporary structure. So it is generally used for the columns in most cases. It is easy to produce. As I said, timber is the basic one, but it is also time consuming and there are also drawbacks which I already told you. So what are the requirements which timber should fulfill? Then you can use it. So it should be well seasoned timber, because there are also timber which decay, which have bad effects of atmosphere as well. So it should be well seasoned, free from termite attacks. You know what is termite? That is white ants, and easily workable, easily dismantling can be done. That is easily workable. Next is your steel formwork. As I discussed already, that the two basic material used for the formwork are the timber and steel formwork. But let me say that if you can use the timber formwork for 10 times, if you can reuse it for 10 times, then you can reuse the steel formwork for as many as 15 to 20 times. So the amount of reuse, the amount of time of reuse is more for steel formwork. So let us say if you are constructing a G+15 structure, then obviously you shall prefer the formwork which can be reused more. But there is always a combination of the formwork material. Partially steel formwork is used and partially timber formwork is used, because for certain sections, let us say column, generally timber formwork is used. So it is always a combination, but if you see in the point of comparison, then steel formwork is more advantageous as compared to timber formwork, because in the steel formwork, like there is atmospheric effects on the timber, there shall be no atmospheric effects on the steel formwork. There will be less possibility, less chance of damage during removal in the steel formwork as compared to timber formwork. There will be no attack by insects or termites, that is white ants, in steel formwork as compared to timber. So this is suitable for circular or curved elements. Steel formwork is also used currently in the market for vertical structures, for horizontal like tunnels, and for the retaining walls. Steel formwork is preferred. Apart from these two materials, we also have aluminum material for preparation of formwork. We also have fiberglass, which is currently an innovative material, a new material emerging in the market. So the basic for you will be timber, steel and plywood, and the advancement which is currently going on in market, there are lots of material for construction of formwork. Next, talking about the economy of formwork. As I discussed already, how formwork economy is important. Now, what all costs shall be included when you talk about economy in the formwork? So, it includes the cost of first of the material, of the labor, for the erection purpose, for the fabrication purpose, for setting up the formwork. Different equipment shall be required, manpower will be required. So all of these together constitute almost more than 50% of the total cost of construction of concrete works. So for a structure, for a construction, for a building, if you talk about overall total cost, then it will be almost more than 50, that will be 53% of construction cost. And the remaining shall be concrete and the reinforcement steel bars cost. So for normal buildings, generally the cost is around 30 to 40% of your concreting budget. Of your concrete budget, it shall be 30 to 40%. So formwork is important in the terms of economy as well. How do you achieve it? So as I said, you can reuse the formwork again and again. So for that purpose, it is necessary that you design the structure such that you are providing identical sizes of beam, column and slab. Because of that, you shall be able to reuse it for a number of times. There is also, let us say that if you cannot reuse it, if there are beams which have different dimensions, then you can again use it in such a way that you can fabricate it and at least use the box for other construction of the different type of beam member. So as much as possible, you should be able to design the formwork such that the economy, the cost is minimum, or let us say it proves to be economical. So that's it for the session, students. In the next session, we shall discuss about specifically erecting formwork for different structural members. Thank you.